Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Gananaham Tva Ganapatigum Havamahe Kavim Kaviramupamastravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anaskranvan Otibhisedasadanam Prano Devi Saraswati Vajebhirvajinivati Dhinama Vitrayavatu Ganeshaya Namaha Saraswatyai Namaha Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Sumukascha Ekadantascha Kapilo Gajakarnakaha Lambodharascha Vikato Vignarajo Vinayakaha Dhumaketurganadhyakshaha Phalachandro Gajananaha Vakratundaha Surpakarno Herambaha Skandapurvajaha Shuklam Baradharam Vishnum Sasivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Yasya Dviradavaktraadhyaha Parishadhyaha Parasatam Vignam Nighnanti Satatam Vishvaksenam Tam Asraye Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheswaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Kujantam Rama Rameti Madhuram Madhuraksharam Aruhya Kavita Shakham Vande Valmiki Kokilam Shri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam Rama Nama Varanane Shri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam Rama Nama Varanane Shri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam Rama Nama Varanane Yatra Yatra Raghunatha Kirtanam Tatra Tatra Krita Mastakaanjalim Bashpavari Paripurna Lochanam Marutim Namata Rakshasantakam. So Vasishtha, after sending off his students, came back to the hermitage, into the ashram, and saw that every nook and corner of the ashram was devoid of life, was dark. There was no light because the 4 students had just left. And then he was afraid that his attachment to these bodies of the 4 children could be a shackle in a spiritual pilgrimage, spiritual journey, and spiritual endeavor, and spiritual accomplishment and achievements and awareness. So he decided to sit in dhyana, which he did, in order to suppress the rising tides of memory, okay? And then very soon he overcame this outer illusion, the Maya, that Rama had enveloped. And Bhagavan always weaves Maya. And even to his closest devotees, only very few had actually did not get caught in the webs of Maya that Bhagavan continuously and constantly weaves around him. And these were the Chatvaris, and then Sukamunivar was there, Prahlada was there, and Dhruva was there. These people were not taken in by Bhagavan's Maya at all. And but Vasishtha was, and so was Viswamitra, as you'd see later. And so then he came and did dhyana and got into samadhi, and then he was very blissful. And then he realized that these 4 boys were nothing but dharma, artha, kama, and moksha taken human forms. As we saw earlier, dharma, artha, dharma, kama, and dharma, moksha, because all the 3 brothers were always attached to dharma, which was Ramo Vigrahavan Dharma, the embodiment of dharma. And then they had taken the human form to reestablish, to teach the mankind and bring them back in the path that they lost. And then he was very, very peaceful. Dasaratha returned with the boys to the palace, and then he took the Guru's advice to heart, and he resolved to teach the children now. They got a supplement, the education now. They learned from Vasishtha now. The Guru had told them that they should now be trained in the various warrior skills, like riding the horse, riding the elephant, archery, fighting with swords. So many things are there, right? And like a Kshatriya should do. So he resolved to teach them that. So he arranged for expert archers to come, and then various others to make arrangements to teach the children the science of attack and defense. Both you should learn. And the very first person to teach archery to Rama was none other than Kaikeyi. Kaikeyi was an expert archer, and as you may know, and how she got the two boons from Dasaratha is because she actually saved Dasaratha in a war, right? And that we will cover later. And so Kaikeyi was very much attached to Rama. She loved him more than her own heart. And so she was the one who first taught Rama the first lessons in archery. And then the other teachers came and as arranged by Dasaratha to teach these four children, how to do attack, at the same time how to defend yourself. But then, but who can really claim to be the teachers of these boys who were already past masters in every field of study? Who can really claim to be the teachers? They were all enveloped in Maya only. And because Bhagavan was acting the role that he had taken on, which was the role of a human being. And why? Because he had taken it in order to save the mankind. So he had to behave among the humanity as one of them. And and according to the conveniences and the limitations imposed by the human interaction. So he had to do that. But continuously, and not only continuously, but also now and then more forcefully, the divinity shone through. And that is something that completely befuddled and confounded everyone, because he couldn't explain it. And this is the beauty and the pleasure and an indescribable experience in interacting with the avatar. Because while the avatar talks to you and moves with you as another human being, and there are also flashes of divinity, and there is an envelope of divinity that embraces you the moment you are in the proximity of Bhagavan in the avatar. And this is something that is beyond senses mind. I mean, it cannot be described at all. And so they also experienced it. And to him who holds the strings of this puppet show and who pulls the strings of the puppet show, who can teach him how to pull strings? This was the beauty that was happening here. And people could not, it's impossible to realize Bhagavan's divinity, the reality of who this avatar is, even though you taste it a little bit and you know something out there that is so fundamentally beautiful and so peaceful, so blissful, but it's beyond you to even your mind to even grasp, or you just experience it and be so contented, like nothing can satisfy you, give you that sense of contentment. And that is what they were experiencing. And but so what Bhagavan was doing, what Rama was doing in the avataram, was he was presenting himself as a human being. But what type of a human being was it? And when we say Shama Sundara, for example, in describing Krishna, and Shama, that means body, but that body is different. Now, body of the avataram, even though it may look like ours, may have the skin and the hands and the nose and the feet and everything else, it may walk and run like the way we do, and it may talk in a very sweet voice. No. That body, that Shama is Sundara Shama, which none of us have in our limited sense of awareness. And we will have that the moment we become one with the Rama that is within each one of us. And so Rama was presenting himself as a human being, just like a coal that is covered with ash, or like a lake that is thick with moss on the surface, so you can't see the water underneath, or like a beautiful moon that is hidden by clouds. So he was basically with a wheel of Maya around him and around the people who see him. He was conducting himself. But Rama and Lakshmana, during their lessons of archery and other arm skills, they were revealing knowledge of strategies and stratagems and skills that even the experts in those fields were wonderstruck to know. How come these boys know all this? They were wonderstruck. Not only that, they even became afraid, because if these students know so much, what else will they do? So they were a bit afraid also. But as they were learning archery, the four princes, Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata and Shatrughna, never shot an arrow at an animal or a bird. Because they had taken a vow that they will use the arms in their possession only on occasions of great urgency, not for the pleasure of killing or wounding animals and birds. And the trainers, the various the trainers, the teachers, and they used to take them to the forest and for various hunting lessons, because that's how you practice, right? And so they will show an animal or a bird there, and they'll ask them to shoot. And but whenever the teachers ask them to do that, they used to say, sir, these arrows that we have are not to be used against innocent targets. They are to be used only for the protection of good and for the welfare of the world and to the service of people. That is the only reason that these arrows are with us. And so we should not insult these arrows and using them for such silly purposes. So they will refrain. They will not shoot at an animal or a bird. And the teachers now could not argue against it, because what they said made sense to them. Like this, every word and every action that Rama did or did not do, and every word he spoke or did not speak, was a lesson, an important divine lesson that he was imparting continuously and constantly in a stream of love and compassion to everybody around him. So others can imbibe and learn, yes, this is what I should do. It's a lesson demonstrated by Rama's message. Rama's life was his message. And once what happened, Lakshmana aimed to shoot the arrow at a bird. Rama immediately came in between him and the animal. He said, Lakshmana, what harm has it done to you or the world? It hasn't done any harm to you or to the world. Then why do you long to shoot it? Why do you want to shoot it? It is quite against the code of prescribed morals about dharma. If for kings, Kshatriyas, the reason Kshatriya comes from the root verb chut. Chut means to protect, to remove the fear of. That is what it means. So Kshatriyas are warriors, and their primary duty is to protect the welfare of the citizens in the country. And they also, in that process, they remove the fear of insecurity from the people, so they could live happily and calmly, that nobody would attack us because this man is taking care of me. That's what Kshatriya means. So there has got a dharma there. And what is a dharma? Is that you should not punish innocent beings. So Rama said, Lakshmana, don't you know? As a Kshatriya, as a dharma of the king, of the ruler, is not to punish innocent people. So why do you want to shoot these animals? What harm have they done to you? So this is how they learned, and the archery and the war skills and everything done on the basis of dharma. Because Ramo Vigrahavan Dharma, embodiment of dharma. And remember, dharma is nothing but love in action. And action includes thought, word, and bodily action. All the three are included in the word action. So love in speech, love in action, love in thought, this is what dharma is. So one day, the Emperor Dasaratha was sitting in his palace along with his sons and ministers and guru and all that, and they were discussing very beautifully their lineage. What about my father, grandfather, great-grandfather? Oh, all these people had been kings, and what did they do? How much devoted to the dharma that they were, in spite of all the challenges that they faced, in spite of all the difficulties that they faced. See, the life of a king is the most complex and most difficult. It's very difficult to be peaceful, being an administrator. But they followed dharma. They stuck to it, that intangible thing that gave them so much strength. In return, what happened? They were fighting the demons and the bad thoughts and the good thoughts, the bad tendencies and the good tendencies. That's what we all have in our life. So our life, each one of our life is a continuous, constant Ramayana. Ramayana is taking place every moment in our own life. The battle between the Kamam, which is what Ravana is, and Dharma, which is what Rama is. And the moment we apply love, immediately Dharma wins. That's basically the lesson from Ramayana. So they were talking about this, how their ancestors, they all held on to this principle and conduct of Dharma in the face of some magnificent challenges, and still they held on to it, and they were how selfless they were. And in return, what happened? The whole citizens, everyone in their kingdom, they loved them as their own, very own. So they were talking about, in return, they had the grace and support of Bhagavan, which is what exactly Pandavas did in that Sundara story. So this is what they were also experiencing. So listening to these stories, the king was very happy, the children, the boys were extremely happy as the stories were being narrated by the ministers and the gurus present and all that. So the children were growing up very nicely, and the ministers, were observing their growth, their maturity of their growth, their skills development, talent development, and their balanced outlook and everything. All these things are required to be a leader. Not everybody can become a leader, right? Those days in Treta Yuga, a person who became a leader had competence for that. That is a very important thing. So the skills were matched to the responsibility that they were discharging. Unlike Kali Yuga, where ambition trumps competence. Right? People are in positions where they are really not competent to be in or to have the skills for, but they are very ambitious and desirous to be there. So that's the dharma of Kali Yuga. So that's the difference between Treta Yuga, one of the differences between Treta Yuga and Kali Yuga, even though the underlying code of conduct, dharma, never changes. Okay? Dharma is constant, never changes, and love never changes. So the ministers were observing that the boys were growing up nicely. So naturally, what would you think? Hey, you know what? Maybe the boys should start taking on some responsibilities in this area in some limited manner and all that. That's the way that you should train them, right? So they were talking about that. And the moment they started talking about it, some of them were thinking about it. The citizens were all very happy when they heard this possibility that the boys can actually start undertaking some responsibility and discharging some administrative matters. The citizens were extremely happy. Why? Because when they looked at these four boys, and how did they look like? They were very simple. They were very simple. They were very humble. They were very virtuous. By looking at them, just by looking at them, you as an observer, will not go astray from your code of conduct. That's how virtuous they were. Like, if you are in the presence of Kanji Paramacharya, for example, how will we conduct ourselves, right? It is like that. When somebody is following dharma, everybody around him also will follow dharma. So they were very virtuous, and above all, they were selfless. They had no iota of selfishness, as we saw in that happening when Bharata came and reported to Kausalya. Yesterday we saw that, right? How Rama let him win in the game. So like that. So there was a very attractive attachment that the citizens had towards him. And so they were very eager that the boys should take on this responsibility to start ruling the kingdom. So this is how beautifully they were growing up. And then when they came to about 11 or 12 years old, and then Dasaratha called to his presence the minister Sumantra. And Sumantra, as we saw earlier, was a person of tremendous virtues. Not only was he a classmate and a close confidant and friend of Dasaratha, he was also one of the chief ministers and a man of tremendous virtues. So he called him, and then he said, Sumantra, now the boys have learned the basic lessons from none other than Vasishtha himself. And then per his command, now they've also gone through the training on the skills required to be a ruler, like on the fighting skills, right? And the protection, attack and defense, and the various horse riding, elephant riding, etc., right? Chariot riding and all that. But now a time has come where to teach them the science of liberation, which is called the Para Vidya. Now there are two types of Vidya. Vidya Vinaya Sampannena. Very important. Whatever you remember or don't remember, please remember this one. It's a teaching from Bhagavan himself. He says, Vidya Vinaya Sampannena. Vidya is the knowledge. And Vinayam is what we call in Tamil as Panivu Manapanmai, which is a mental aptitude and mental attitude of humility. Being very humble, not in a false way, but in a sincere way. And the humility comes from the awareness of immanent divinity, that Bhagavan, this entity, is there everywhere, all around me, within me, omnipotent, omnipresent, etc., and in a natural way of revering and respecting that entity that is present, that divinity that is present, automatically one becomes humble. And that humility, that humbleness, that humility is Vinayam. And Vinayam is very, very important. So only with Vinayam, all the knowledge will accrue. Sampannena, they will accrue in plenty. And so there are two types of Vidyas. One is associated with the worldly matters. It is called Apara Vidya. And this includes all the things that we learn, whether it is science, art, music, whatever else, that we learn in order to eke out a living, right? But the Paravidya is the Atmic knowledge, where you do the journey inwards and touch the Rama that is seated in your lotus heart. That is Paravidya. And Dasaratha told Sumantra, they must now be taught in this spiritual science of liberation, the Paravidya, the Moksham, the Atma Vidya, basically. And as Vedam says, once you know that, everything else is known. Then, why should you learn that? It is again, remember, we should not fall into the trap that Rama needed Paravidya. No. Rama is Para, is the Atma. But why should Dasaratha tell Sumantra go and take them into this path, which he's going to describe in more detail now? Is for people like you and me. Because this Paravidya, knowing which, Aparavidya also you will automatically know, but knowing Aparavidya, you will not know Paravidya. It's the other way around. But it is very important to know that, because what is the fundamental message of Ramayana? What is the fundamental message of Ramayana? Is to live in love and share the love that you are with everything and everybody around you, because God is love, and therefore live in love. That is Ramo Vigrahavan Dharma. So when we say Dharma, immediately we kind of take a step back. No, Dharma is the most natural thing, as natural as it is natural for ice to be cold, or as natural as it is for fire to be hot. It is natural for a human being to speak the truth. Most natural. It is unnatural to lie, actually. It is so natural to speak the truth. That's why a newborn baby will always speak the truth. And it is natural for us to be loving. It is natural for us to be dharmic. That is our quality. But because we get sidetracked, basically by desires, in order to follow this path of dharma, to expand our heart and to show more and more love and hold on to dharma in the face of many challenges and difficulties and complexities and so many traps that come in our way, requires strength. Tremendous strength it requires. What type of strength? Not physical strength, moral strength. And that can come only through the study of Para Vidya, the Atmic knowledge, the science of liberation. This is what Dasaratha was explaining to Sumantra. He said, not only that, Sumantra, yes, they have to follow dharma. As a king, you cannot waver, move away or slip away even the tiniest part from the path of dharma, because you are the ruler. Yatha Raja, Tatha Praja. We saw what happened to Dilipa, right? And so, must follow very carefully. And this dharmic path is, as Kanchi Paramacharya says, is like walking on a very sharp knife edge of knife. So it is that narrow a path it is. And so we must be very strong, very careful, and very cautious, very dedicated, very concerned, and very attentive to be able to do that. So, to get that strength to do that, the commitment to do that, and the enthusiasm and the perseverance to do that, you can get that only through Paravidya. This is why the spiritual knowledge, the moral education, and the study of our scriptures and what they prescribe, how to lead our life, that is so fundamentally important. With that, we can achieve other things on the basis of that foundation. Now, at what age should be important? Only when you are young, because that's when you lay the foundation for your life. Because later on, success or failure in life, how is it based upon? Based upon what impressions you have in your young age, what experiences you get in your young age. If you are taught right from young age not to lie, you will never lie. If you are taught in young age to always speak the truth, that's what you will do, in spite of some difficult situation that comes later on. So the foundation has to be laid when one person is young. And so this, that's what I continued. And so he said, Sumantra, what you do, take the princess around the kingdom and let them see not only the various citizens and people across the nation and interact with them and what condition the people are living in. They are all Rama and Dasara, they were all living in palace, but you have to see how a common man lives. And how will you do that? Only when you go and interact with them. So let them do that. But in addition to that, let them also visit all the various sacred places, the Kshetrangal that we have, and look at the holiness of those Kshetrangal and describe to them why a given place is holy, what happened there, what rishi visited that place, what sages came there, how they sanctified it, and how the springs of divinity is still present in those places. So take them around the kingdom, and if you do that, I think it will be very good for them. I really feel so, because as they grow, and then from a teenage, because they are 11 and 12 now, very soon they will become into teenage and all that. And this is through all the yugas, Through teenage can be a golden period in a person's life, but that's also the period when the maximum challenges take place and people make mistakes and all that, right? So, because what happened, the sensual desires comes, and the sensual urges comes, the ego comes, so many things, other things come there, they try to trap you. But if they have this education and foundation, then they will be vigilant. They will not fall prey to the attractions and the adventurous the thing that people want to take, the rebelliousness that comes at that age. They will be very careful about that. And then they will, in their continuous vinayam, this reverence and awe to the divinity that is present everywhere, once they get this education, and that would be a fantastic foundation for them to build their future life that will help them carry out all the tasks and the actions that they are asked to perform. And this way, this will protect them to save their humanness and prevent them from demeaning themselves into falling into animality. And because for rulers of kingdom, it is essential that they follow this. They follow the strict code of law because they have to set example to the rest of the people. So consult the Guru and set up an auspicious time for this pilgrimage to take place. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu Samastalokaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om.